What's up, everybody? This is Greg Birch with Delta Financial, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And we bring on guest speakers. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Miss Lorraine Ball. Lorraine, how are you?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for coming on and just basically pouring into the audience and sharing your experiences. So to introduce Lorraine for the audience that doesn't know who she is, after spending too many years in corporate America, Lorraine, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up your, there we go. Lorraine said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, and bad coffee to follow her passion to help small business owners succeed. Today, the successful entrepreneur, author, professional speaker, and host of a weekly marketing podcast, More Than a Few Words, brings creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience to every conversation. As the founder of the Digital Toolbox community, she helps business owners use internet marketing to grow. And in her spare time, she loves to travel and take photos. You can see her photos at lorraineball.com. Mm-hmm. Lorraine, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you so much. You know, it's so funny when you listen to your own bio, you're like, wow. Okay, yeah, cool, whatever. But yeah, I guess that's a pretty good summary of who I am these days.
Yeah, nice. So let's start at the beginning. You said you were in corporate America. Mm-hmm. Talk about your experiences. Where were you working, and what got you to make that decision to transition?
So I worked for several different companies, but the ones that had the most impact on me, I spent a number of years in retail, and then I worked in the HVAC industry for two different companies, Carrier Corporation, and then a financial services company. And we won't even talk about how all those fit together. They kind of do, but whatever. But I was chasing the corporate dream. I wanted the VP title. I wanted the big corporate office. And there is a saying that you need to be careful what you wish for because you might get it. Mm-hmm. And my last gig, when somebody else was writing me a paycheck, I was running a team with 48 people. I had the VP title. I had the corner office, and I hated my life. So that was really a good time to kind of step back and go, okay, so what do you want to do? And the funny thing was I was flipping through some boxes and I found the essay I had written when I applied to grad school. And I had talked about the fact that I was getting that degree because I wanted to work with small businesses, because I had been working in a small business and I really felt like they needed that help. And I was like, wow, I kind of got sidetracked. Maybe I should go back to that. So that was how I ended up spinning out. And I think the other thing that really made me realize it was time to move on is I had heard an interview with Peter Drucker talking about one of his books, Thriving on Chaos. And he was talking about how companies needed to hire crazy people. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. And it wasn't just people with interesting resumes, but people who really looked at the world differently. And I go running down the hall to my boss and I'm like, have you read this? What do you think of this? And he looks at me and he's like, why do you think we hired you? Okay, good. I know where I fit. Great. Unfortunately, I didn't read the rest of the book, in which Peter Drucker talks about the fact that organizations hire these crazy people and then spend the rest of the time trying to cut their corners off and get them to fit into these neat little slots.
Yeah.
And that's really where the idea for my digital agency, or the originally traditional agency, Round Peg, came from. It was a place where I fit, where I didn't have to cut off my corners to belong.
So this moment of realization that you had, and it's kind of epiphany. How long did you sit with that before you said, now's the time?
You know, I think it was about 6 months. I probably should have sat a little, full confession, I should have sat a little bit longer. I should still have done it. I just should have maybe been a little more prepared.
Yeah.
I was a little naive about how long it was going to take to get things up and running. And I think that's very common with a lot of entrepreneurs. I had 2 projects before I left my full-time job, which was great. And then I had this really big gap before I got my next one. And that was the piece that I really should have thought through a little bit more was when you start your business, particularly if you're a consultant, you're going to have a few contacts that'll hire you and give you a shot, which is great to get started, but
Mm.
you better have a process to
We're getting more.
generate more ongoing business from people who don't know you. And that was a painful few months.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably prospecting for most entrepreneurs. Prospecting is usually the most challenging.
Mhm,
As long, I mean, you can have a great product, you can have a great
mhm,
service, everything can be in line, but then it's the prospecting is getting in front of those people
mhm,
to where they'll hear it. And so
mhm.
how did you solve that problem?
So I went back to my roots, to the things that I did really well. And one of the things I did well was teach. I've taught at the university level, I've done seminars. I'm very comfortable in front of a group. And I thought, well, I'll run small business seminars. And I started running classes. I wasn't charging a lot for them, but it put me in front of a lot of small business owners who then got to know me and then felt comfortable saying, "Oh, hey, can we work with you?" The other thing that I did that I wish I could say I really planned this. A friend of mine introduced me to the director of the Small Business Development Center in my state. Every state has an SBDC. He introduced me to the head of the SBDC and said, you do seminars. They're looking for small business seminars. They don't have the bandwidth in-house. Why don't you partner? And that was a wonderful, wonderful relationship because I got the credibility of this much larger organization
Mm.
that was promoting my classes and introducing me to a much wider audience. And then all I had to do was get up and talk, which is something I've clearly good at.
Yeah.
So, I think the takeaway for your audience is that find organizations. If you're having a little trouble filling your pipeline, find partners. I worked with the SBDC. I became a reseller for Constant Contact and I did seminars for them. And I got involved with a networking organization that was putting together a small business university. And again, brought what I knew to the party.
Nice, nice. And I love how a lot of times the path that you want or the end state that you want
Mhm.
isn't necessarily always the path that you have to take, right? And it's like it's like you never knew when you started that the SBDC was going to be this pathway that you were going to be able
Mhm.
to latch onto in order to
Mhm.
generate more business and have that referral partner. You didn't come into it thinking I need a referral partner. It just kind of naturally, organically happened that way, but it didn't happen that way until you kind of tapped into yourself and said, "Hey, how can I generate more clients? Well, I'm good at teaching. Let me go and
Mhm.
do business seminars." And that was
Mhm.
the start of that journey that led you to the SBDC and so on and so forth, that then you could catapult and multiply from there.
Absolutely. And, the funny thing is, fast forward 20 years, I sold the agency that I built. So ran the business, loved it for 20 years, but 20 years is a long time to do the same thing.
Mhm.
But what I kept was the intellectual property. So I took all of the training classes that I had created and I put them into an online portal
Mhm.
and I kept my podcast. So the two things that were the educational piece of what I had developed and built and expanded
Your
for
essence.
the piece of the business that really was just me. That's the foundation of what I do now. And so it kind of came full circle.
Yeah. So what are some ways that I mean, you started this business when you're
Mhm,
leaving corporate America and you're like, yeah, I want to help small businesses to succeed.
mhm.
How did that come to fruition? How do you actually, what was your first initial game plan to be able to help those small businesses and kind of what your strategy was?
So, wow. My first vision, because both at Carrier Corporation and then at Conseco, one
Mhm.
of the programs that I had been very involved in was what was called dealer development.
Yeah.
So both of those are products. And this story is going somewhere, so bear with me.
I like it.
So both of those products are sold through a multi-tier program where the manufacturer sells to a distributor who sells to a dealer who sells to a homeowner. And so you've got this chain, and if any of the links in the chain break, the manufacturer can't get their products into the customer's hands.
Okay.
And a lot of products are sold that way. And so it was a process I knew really well. My vision was not that these small businesses individually were going to be my customers. That was not my original vision. My vision was I was going to partner with the manufacturers and with the distributors, develop these programs that either they could or I could, conduct, but they would be my customers. They would be the ones paying the bills.
Mm.
And, whether it was training or consulting or, developing marketing programs. And what I found through that process was the very thing that I hated about corporate was still part of that mix, the bureaucracy. I created a program for Carrier. It took them 6 months to make up their mind that they wanted the program. 6 months. It took me 3 months to build the whole thing, and it took them another year to get it launched.
Wow.
So
a lot of red tape.
Yeah, because everybody and their brother had to read it and proof it and whatever. And while they were doing that, I took that same kind of marketing program, stripped out all the branding, and was offering it to other individual businesses while they were trying to get their act together to launch it, on the national level. And so what I started to realize was, and that was where the seminars kind of cut through the red tape. It allowed me to create a circle or a path around this roadblock and get me in front of individual customers. Yeah. And again, it wasn't what I originally envisioned. I also thought I was going to do, and this was, I think, the other thing I wrote in one of my notes to you. One of the things I did in corporate that I was really good at was fixing broken teams. They'd put me in charge of a team that was dysfunctional, and my job was to get it running. Mm. And when I left corporate, I thought there was a real opportunity there to teach managers and business owners how to build high-performance teams, whether you're a small business with 5 or 6 people or a really large organization. And what I found coming out in 2002 was that there were more people than jobs. And so companies didn't care about building high-performance teams because there was always somebody else who would take the job. And so while I was trying to develop that side of my business, I kept bumping into small businesses who were like, no, I don't want that, but marketing, you do marketing, right? I'm like, well, yeah. So I did marketing.
Very nice. And I want to tap into building a high-performance team. Mm-hmm. And so most of the audience, I'd say a majority of the audience are insurance agents, 1099 mm-hmm. insurance agents that are either selling. They probably are interested in marketing, but also they're trying to build their own business. They're trying mm-hmm. to build an agency or recruit, mm-hmm. hire, train, stuff like that. What are some key strategies that you can go over that would help them mm-hmm. to either fix their team if their team's not performing the way they want it to perform, and I guess metrics to identify that mm-hmm. and what they need to do, but mm-hmm. then how to then scale and build correctly.
So, couple of things. Number one, with insurance agents, one of the challenges they have with marketing is because I did some time in insurance. You have compliance or the sales prevention department that we like to refer to them, and so they have a very narrow path with marketing, and so really the biggest part of their marketing is the face that they present to customers. And if you're going to have an agency, that means you're going to have multiple people and multiple faces. And so the single biggest thing is getting everybody on the same page and making sure that everybody understands what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
A lot of business owners, I think, assume that their employees know. And I'll give you an example from my heating and air conditioning days. one of the most expensive things that a contractor has to deal with is something called the callback. You send somebody out to fix a furnace. They spend 2 hours, you get paid for 2 hours, they go away, the customer calls back and says, it still doesn't work. Now you got to send somebody back out
That's
and you can't charge for it.
Yeah.
So callbacks are a huge problem. I was working with this one contractor and he's like, well, callbacks, they're killing me. I'm like, well, does your team know? And he says, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, let's ask him. And so at a team meeting, I'm like, what's your priority when you're on a job site on July 1? And they're like, oh man, get in and out as fast as possible because I got 4 more calls. Ding, 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 ding. Employees, fast as possible. What happens when you work fast as possible?
Make mistakes.
Yeah, make mistakes. Owner, zero mistakes. And so you had these 2 groups of people who had very different assumptions about what their primary objective was.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just happen in that industry. It happens in so many industries. So I would, as an owner, sit down and make a list of what are the things that are most important to you, and then ask your employees and listen to the answers. The second, and this kind of plays into it, and this was always a fun exercise, and it was really hard for me the first time I did it. It was a corporate values exercise, because in corporate, you have values, you put them on the wall. Small businesses need really clear values.
100% agree.
Good.
100% agree.
I mean, because it is, and I'm going to full circle it, but I knew what the company values were. But then I sat down and I did an exercise with my employees, and I asked them to brainstorm a list of words that they felt captured our values. And some of the words were the same and some of them weren't. And then we kind of, refined it down to 4, 3 to 5 words, depending on, and we would do this every few years as my teams turned over. It was really hard for me when one of the things that was really a core value for me didn't surface. And I was like, well, guys, this is really important. And my team pushed back and they're like, yeah, that's important. It's important to you. But to the overall organization and to our customers, these other things were more important. And so there were 2 lessons going on there. Number 1, it was a healthy conversation about values. Number 2, it was a real wake-up call for me that my company wasn't just me anymore, and that there was a bigger face. Our values, we had them on the wall, and every candidate we interviewed, we had a worksheet after the end of the interview when people, because and my whole team, we were small enough, would interview potential employees, and we'd go through the values and we're like, okay, did they demonstrate this? Did they demonstrate this? And we rejected some amazing graphic designers because we were like, oh my God, they do not get the idea of a welcoming environment. They do not get the idea of respect. I mean, whatever it was. And what that did was over time, we had an organization of people who not just liked each other, but lived in a certain way that I was perfectly comfortable. No matter who picked up the telephone, no matter who a customer talked to, they would have the same experience. And I did not have to write it out for them because that was just who they were.
So you're hitting on so many great points right here. So this is for the audience listening, this is the key to building a great sales team. Is that you have to have core values, and most people don't do that. And they think that, oh, well, maybe if I have some specific kind of training, or if I do an extra meeting, or if I do this, that, or the other, like there's got to be something else, because core value, like you got to spend time coming up with the core values that you believe, that you and your organization stand by. You have to hire and fire by your core values, and you have to live them. You have to be the example. And what'll happen is like what you're saying, Lorraine, is that it takes time to get people in that believe in those things, that live by those things. And what happens eventually is they start what we call in the military policing our own. When they see somebody that's against the core values, like, hey man, that didn't fit this value, bro. And they will fix it for you. But that takes time to build and embed within your organization. It's not something that's over. You can't like, oh, well, here's my 5 core values, post them, and then you're done.
Oh no.
No. You gotta preach them for the mountaintops. You gotta be evangelical about them. You gotta talk about them at team meetings. You gotta highlight people by them. You gotta hire by them, fire by them. When somebody does something that you have to do a corrective action, you got to say, hey, you did this action. Hey, is that what core value did that go against? Right?
Absolutely.
And it's got to be embedded in everything that you do, and it takes time. But when you do it, man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one of our core values, the way we defined it and explained it to others was hospitality, that we wanted people to feel welcome, both employees and customers. And one of the ways that we demonstrated that, and we really talked about it, phones got answered on the first ring. Every time. If I heard a phone ring twice, I was like, what the heck is going on? And it became a game. People would fight to jump on the phone to see who could get to it first. Yeah. And it not only was that really very much kind of who we were, and it extended, we officed out of a little house. We had animals all over the place. People walked in and the first thing you did is ask them if they wanted coffee. I mean, it was very much that welcoming environment.
Yeah.
But it also got us business, because most of my competitors used voicemail. You would call and you'd hear, hi, thank you for calling agency A. Please push 1 for this, push 2 for this, push 3 for this, and push 4 if you're bored. And you'd call us, and the first thing you noticed is 1 ring. Hi, thanks for calling Grandpeg. How can I help you? And I got interviews on local television when they needed a marketing expert. I was their first call, because they knew if I call Lorraine and she's available, I'm going to get her on the first ring.
Yeah.
And customers,
man, here's the breadcrumbs. You guys got to follow these breadcrumbs to the success, because that's it right there. Is that the core values should be a reflection of how you want your team to operate at the highest levels. And really, it's like when no one's watching them, when there's no possibility of anyone of being reprimanded, are they going to do the right thing at the best possible level? And that's what your core values should kind of center around. And you kind of, and when you bleed that into your organization, right, then you end up providing this undeniably great customer experience, which it becomes, you have these clients that become raving fans and talk about you, and it just bleeds throughout. They become marketers for you and your service. You get more business because you're doing things that others are not doing. And here's the thing, is that if you're at your level, Lorraine, when you were there, I'm sure it would have been probably more effective and efficient for you to have an answering service, right? It would have. But the value is found in the inefficiencies. Value is found in those inefficiencies.
Yeah, I argued with people, and it was funny when people first came to the company. One of the things that was really interesting is, in particularly young professionals, they screen their calls. If a phone rings, you know, if there's a number they don't recognize on their cell phone, they don't answer it. It goes to voicemail.
Yeah.
They text, they don't call. And I was like, no, that's not our culture. And so we actually would play a game. Oh, you're new here. Here's the deal. No one else is going to answer the phone your first week. You are on phone duty. Every time it rings, you answer it, and you answer it on the first ring. And it was a great way to break the habit and bring them into our world. And, you know, the thing is, very often, you know, people look for all of these crazy ways to differentiate from their competitors. And I think that's one of the other lessons, is this set us apart. It absolutely set us apart. And it wasn't expensive, and it wasn't hard to do. but it established an identity for who we were.
Mhm. And those ways that you want to set yourself apart, a lot of times are those very simple things.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, when I send cards, I used to send, cards to all of my clients when I get done, helping them with a
Mm-hmm.
policy. And I wanted to make it as efficient as possible. So I started doing like pre-printed cards with a pre-printed signature. And then I would just send the address and the information to my admin. She
Mm-hmm.
would send the card for me. She did all that. But when I started like handwriting cards and putting a thoughtful message
Mm-hmm.
that was in direct correlation to the conversation we may have had and referencing some of the things we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it didn't cost me a lot of extra. In fact, it was cheaper to do it this way because I didn't have to order a bunch of pre-printed cards. I could get a blank thank you card, and it just took me time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone told me about it, it was like, well, why don't you do this? And here's why. And he was like, and I was like, yeah, but it's so much easier, blah blah. And he's like, well, he's like, when's the last time you got a pre-printed card from a business that you worked with? And so the first thing I thought about was Volvo. So I bought a Volvo car back in from a specific dealership back in like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I still to this day get pre-printed, even though I've moved 3 times since then.
They followed you.
They follow me for that. I still get from Crest Volvo in
Mm-hmm.
in Tucson, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even live in Tucson. I'm in Dallas, Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still get Crest Volvo cards
Mm-hmm.
that are pre-printed. And he's like, well, what happens with those? Well, I have to throw them straight in the trash. I have from day one. He's like, now what if someone sends you a handwritten card with a handwritten and your name, everything's handwritten from the outside of the card, on the inside. What do you usually do with those? I was like, yeah, I usually keep those. And like sometimes I'll even put them on my fridge. It's like, that's really kind, but it's top of mind. I know that it took someone effort to do that, no matter who it was. It means way more to me.
Absolutely. One of the questions you have to ask yourself, and different businesses are going to answer this question differently. What's a customer worth? And, when you look at, and in the insurance business, the lifetime value of a customer is huge. I mean, you get that young married couple and you blow them away with a handwritten note. They come back when they buy a home. They come back when they have a baby. They come back.
Yes.
Or they move and they don't take that pre-printed card with them. Yeah. I mean, we have, and I won't do the commercial, but we have had automobile and home insurance from the same company since we got married decades ago. We've had stolen autos and kitchen fires and, teenage children that did strange things with automobiles. And through it all, they have stayed with me. And the insurance agent will call me periodically, especially when my kids were teenagers, go, okay, we need to have a defensive driving class for your children or your policy rates are going to be crazy. But I'll get calls from other insurance companies and I'm like, no, you don't understand. These guys have been there through it all. And not going to change.
Would it be worth your time?
No.
Because I trust this person.
Yeah. And because you may save me a couple of bucks today, but what happens a year from now or 2 years from now? And I know what happens with this company.
Yeah. When you have to make a claim or something like that. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And you're making that's such a fantastic point. This is like genius because I talk to my agents all the time about the lifetime value of a client. It's like if you don't need to because retention is more important than acquisition. And retaining those clients, especially when they have a massive lifetime value to where you're the person. They go to you for everything. Like even stuff that like, hey, do you know about this? It's like, well, I can't sell to you, but I do know somebody that does this, that, the other. And you are like a connector. You're that go-to person for almost anything. You're not only going to service them for every single policy they do for their entire life, but you're going to service their kids. You're going to service their family. They're going to brag about you at Thanksgiving dinner when they have friends over. They're going to talk about you all the time. And the lifetime value will just spread
Mhm.
For more.
I mean, I actually teach a course, and I can't go into too much of it now, but it's called basically it's the numbers of marketing, and I run through a series of different mathematical formulas that basically show you here's how much advertising you need if you need this many clients, and your closing rate is this, and you have no referrals. Here's how much you have to spend. Every time you get one referral, this number goes down by a factor of 1,000. I mean, it's this crazy formula. And the other thing is lifetime value of a customer. There was a Cadillac dealer in Dallas, as a matter of fact, years ago, who figured out that even if he had to completely refund the cost of a Cadillac, it was worth it because that customer would come back. So no matter, and again, being at odds, his service department versus his objective, his service department was charging for every little thing and annoying the crap out of these customers. And when he instituted policies that are like, you know what, on those little things, we're not going to charge. We're just going to include it. And people are like, but you're going to lose all this money. And he's like, yeah, no.
Not in the long run.
Not in the long run, because in the long run, that customer is going to buy a new Cadillac every 3 years. And he's going to buy it from me.
Yep.
And so you really need to figure out, what is a customer worth? Now, if you're in a business that's high turnover, no repeat business, maybe you don't have to be as cognizant. But if you're in a professional service, you've got to learn how to do the right things for the long-term relationship for that client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at least on the insurance side, this is, from my experience, and I'm in the life and health.
Mhm.
What I've realized and everything that I've been trained coming up until I am where I'm at now is the churn and burn. Buy leads, client, buy leads, sell, sell, sell. And like, just go to the next, go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. And when I changed that model to where I was like more of a nurturing process and building relationships with clients and having these people, a sustainable book of business that I can go back to, I can get referrals from. What happens is that over time, your business, as your sales go up, your cost per acquisition goes down, like you're saying. And that's how you know you have a successful business, because your service, your product, something about it is becoming viral. People are talking about it. You're becoming remarkable.
The way I looked at it is, when I would pick up the phone, if the person said, hey, Lorraine, I got your name from Mary. You did a website for her. I want to talk to you. Or this call started with, hi, I got you from a Google search. 2 sales opportunities, 2 small businesses. I can guarantee you I was 4 times more likely to close the sale that started with, hey, I got your name from, then, oh, I found you on Google. Now, in insurance, it's a little different, but if you're in a business where there's price sensitivity, the call that starts with, I got your name from Google, they're more likely to be price shoppers. They're more likely to be running around getting 10 quotes and wasting your time.
Yep.
People that are coming in on referrals, significantly better chance that they will not price shop. It's yours. The business is yours to lose.
Yeah.
And so as you're looking at your marketing budget, and this was the other thing, once I really figured out the whole marketing pyramid, I realized I could spend a lot of money on mass marketing, trying to get out in front of everybody. Or once I had this loyal base, I could spend more money talking to them and asking for referrals and asking for testimonials. And you know what? They started sending me more leads. And as they sent me more leads, I needed less and less of that churn and burn.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever heard of the fake agent test?
No.
So just to show that especially when it comes to like cultivating your book of business, if you have a good book of business, staying top of mind, continuing to drip on them and send them information. So this group did a study, and they went to a random neighborhood, and they polled every single person in the neighborhood. They went door by door knocking and asking, who is the number one real estate agent in this area, in this for this neighborhood. And every single person had a different answer, but most of them basically they gave the real estate agent that sold them their house naturally, right?
Mhm.
So then they did an 8-week test where every single week, week after week, they sent out a flyer that had an agent's picture, name, and an MLRS number, but it was all fake. It was a fake agent. And they did the same agent for 8 weeks. And then they did a poll at the end of the 8 weeks. And almost everybody said that the fake agent was the number one agent, just
Oh, yeah.
because that person was top of mind, because they got that they were able to see that mailer week after week for 8 weeks. And it
Mhm.
just goes to show you that by being in tune and being in touch with your book of business, you're more likely to be able to get further follow-on business or referrals from them.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, if a fake agent could do it, what could you do as a live, real
That
person?
you've already provided a service to. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Exactly. So
Cool.
it's all these different marketing. So it's so fascinating to me in the past about year and a half, because when you really stop and think about it, like, everything in life is marketing.
Mm.
Everything around us, from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep, everything from you just walking around, the phone that you have, you're
Mhm.
marketing that phone when you pull
Mhm.
it out, when you're looking at it. Or if you have, like, the AirPods are designed, they look that specific way
Mhm.
because Apple designed them to look that way, because it says something about you, right? Apple,
Mhm.
that's marketing. Just you
Mhm.
using AirPods in public and seeing a bunch of people using different kinds of AirPods, it's like, oh, Apple, 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 marketing,
Mhm.
marketing, marketing, right? And
Yep.
so when you start to really look at marketing, when you start to see it, it makes it easier for you to become seen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that example because it really taps into so many of the emotions that people have and how they make buying decisions and why they buy. And to me, all of the marketing boils down to something very simple.
Mhm.
Who is your customer and what do they want and what questions do they have?
Yeah.
And everything that you do in your marketing has to be designed to answer those questions.
Yep.
Whether it's on social or whether it's in a billboard, you know, what is it that customers want to know? And when they come looking for that answer, are you giving it to them?
Mhm. Absolutely. And if you notice, Lorraine started with the first question is, who is your customer? And let
Mm.
me tell you, your customer is not everybody.
Mm-mm.
You have an ideal client avatar. You have a niche. Okay. You have a
Mhm.
specific client, like the perfect client. And it's not so much that that client needs the service so much as it is, because a lot of times let's just look at, like, say, life insurance. Okay, everybody needs life insurance because everyone's gonna die, right? Unless you've got millions of dollars of liquid cash, or you have a lot
Mhm.
of liquid cash where your family can bury you instantly, you don't have to worry about it, right?
Mhm.
But 90% of America doesn't have that. So most people need it so that if when the worst happens, their family gets money, so they're not put in financial dire straits. Now, even though I can market to everybody, that doesn't mean that I should market to
Mhm.
everybody, because it dilutes my marketing. So I have to identify who my ideal client avatar is. Who's my client? Who's my customer? Who's the ideal person that I'm trying to speak to? That is the first step.
A lot of business owners get concerned when you tell them they have to niche down because they're like, well, but what if somebody else wants to buy from me? And the example I always give is Coke. Okay. Coca-Cola, not the drug.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am not Coke's customer. In a world with chocolate, I'm not going to spend 150 calories on soda.
Yeah.
I'm not. And no woman my age is going to. And Coke understands this. And so they spend zero of their marketing budgets trying to convince me to buy Coke. They may advertise their Diet Coke or some of their other products, but you're not going to see an ad for Coke in Elle Magazine, on We TV. You're not. It's just, they're not going to be there.
Yeah.
Now, that's their marketing. However, if I walk into a convenience store and I say to the clerk, I would like a Coke, please. He's not going to say to me, I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not in Coke's demographic. You can't have one.
Yeah.
He's going to say, $1.25, have a nice day.
Yep.
Marketing focus. Sales doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Marketing is, we're pushing these people to you. When you open the door, sales, whoever's standing on the other side, you talk to. If I do my job well as a marketer, the right people are on that other side of that door.
I was actually having a conversation with some of my agency owners earlier today, and I was telling them when it comes to marketing, instead of trying to market to everybody, basically look at marketing where the client, your perfect client is the lock, your marketing is the key. So if you're trying to say, "Oh, I'm going to market to everybody," you're basically trying to create a key without, and then going around trying to find the lock that it fits, right? That's ass backwards.
Yes, it is.
You
Yes,
have
it
to
is.
actually find the lock first, and you have to study that lock, and then you have to create the perfect key that fits that lock. That's how you do marketing. And when you do that, guess what? You're going to find that perfect client that you can service to the best of your ability. That doesn't mean that you're not going to service people outside of that, because guess what's going to happen? If you provide excellent customer service, they're going to bring people to you. They will become, as Seth Godin says, they'll become sneezers. They will sneeze
Yes.
your ideas, everybody, and they'll bring more people to you.
You know, one of the, I mentioned that I spent some time in insurance, and I worked for a company called Conseco. And I don't know if you remember them, because they went out of business like in 2004 or 3 through bad management, but not bad marketing. Their marketing actually was brilliant, because at a time when every financial services company was targeting high net worth individuals, they recognized that there was a huge market in middle income customers who were largely ignored by financial services companies. And all of their marketing was very down to earth, very everyman. People really knew who they were, and they really built a following in that market. But it was a case of great marketing can't save bad management. But some of their commercials were so clever, because they really spoke to the pain. Average consumer is concerned, what if I end up in the hospital? How am I going to pay the bill? And so a television commercial with a guy coming out of a hospital room in his gown with his IV bag and waddling to the kitchen to wash dishes to pay for his hospital bill really resonated with, again, that middle American family who's like, yeah, that's a real concern. Not that I expect to be washing the dishes in the hospital, but I'm going to be doing something. And so I think it was a really great example of matching who they wanted their customers to be, and creating marketing that drove them to the brand.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect example of how you can have the right marketing in order to find the success that you're looking to find. Sometimes it's, every single product and every single person that's selling that product, okay, business owner, individual sales producer, whatever, you do have a niche market. And I was like, and don't be the person like, oh, I can sell to anybody, like everybody loves me. Don't be that person that's egotistical. And I'm telling you, you're actually holding your business back. You are holding your business back when you do that. You actually, when you niche down, you would be surprised, especially as an insurance producer. If you had 100 raving fan clients, that's all you need. That's all you need.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I used to laugh. I'd go to networking events, and the Mary Kay lady would say, my customer is anyone with skin. And I'd be like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
And the chiropractor who said, anybody who has a spine is my customer. They can all use your services, but you know what? A lot of those people are never going to go to a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And you can spend so much time and energy trying to convince the wrong people, or you can spend time and energy cultivating relationships, again, with that group of 100 customers who really love you, who are referring their friends and family, and cultivating that referral network and those relationships. And I guarantee you, every single time you will sell more, you'll close more of the opportunities that you get, and you will spend less overall on marketing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been great. I didn't even see this conversation going. So this has been awesome. So Lorraine, tell me a little bit, and then we can wrap it up. With you, I assume right now that you're still kind of working to help small businesses, and with everything that you've learned from the time that you spent in your marketing organization and around PEG. And so what are some, I mean, we talked about core values. We talked about, helping to build a winning team. Talked about marketing. What are some other things that you do as part of your service to help small businesses, just for the listeners, so they know, like, hey, if I want to reach out to Lorraine for my business, what are some of the ways that you go about that?
So digitaltoolbox.club. It is an online portal. We've got individual courses, or we just switched and went to a lifetime membership. I was doing the monthly subscriptions, and the reality is most people needed the training and the tools for about a year and a half. And so rather than getting into a situation where people were subscribing and unsubscribing, pay one time, log in as long as you want. Or just pay for, if you just want one class, just take that one class. And that's a great way, I think, for business owners. Most of the courses revolve around digital marketing. I just launched a new class on how to write a business plan. It's one of my early ones that we just updated for the new format. Also, look for my podcast, More Than a Few Words. You can find it iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to reach out, probably the best place to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. I'm happy to chat. Tell me that you heard me on the Be the Difference podcast, and we can go from there.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Last question. You can sit down with, break bread with, learn from, and just grow from three individuals. Anyone in history. Living or passed away, deceased.
Best way. I want to hang out with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I just have so much respect for RGB. I think she's awesome and amazing. She was so, surprisingly, there are things about some of the early court cases that she litigated that I think would surprise people. Like her first Supreme Court case was actually defending a man's right to do something. And it's just kind of that broad spectrum. I think the second person, the artist, Georgia O'Keeffe, because she was such a rebel. She left a very successful and affluent lifestyle in New York City to go out to Santa Fe and do her art. And I love her life, and I love her art. And who would I pick as my third? You know what? Right now, I would like to talk to Vladimir Zelensky. I think that man has just everything he's done with the war, everything he's done with bringing a nation together. Watching him command the media and understanding how to use media to deliver messages that bring people together, that motivate. I would love to just understand his motivations and long-term vision.
Absolutely. I love that. Those are three unique ones I have not received yet. So I always like getting new ones, because I always get I'd like to talk to Jesus Christ. It's like, don't get me wrong, I would too. But I get that one a lot.
You know what? It was funny because we always ask that question during an interview. You can talk to anybody alive or dead. And one of the guys, his initial response was, before he answered it, he kind of went, "Who, Jesus?" And he meant it more as like, "Wow, that's a tough question."
Yeah.
And we went, "Oh, really, Jesus?" And he went, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll go with that."
Yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah, he's number one. Yeah. Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you so much, Lorraine, for coming on and sharing your experience and a lot of these strategies. This is a great call. This was a great podcast. For those of you watching, go back and rewind and listen to some of this. These are some really great tips and tricks and strategies that Lorraine added and shared with all of you guys. I'm talking to core values, building a great team, the marketing strategies, everything. This is something that can literally take, if you start applying these tactics, can change your business 100%. Just by applying these simple tactics. And then you can reach out to her and you can take out her toolbox and you can grow even more. So thank you so much, Lorraine. I appreciate it. For all the audience watching, if you did get any value from this, if you learned anything, if you grew, if it changed your perspective, then do me a favor. Share this content with somebody else. Give me a rate, a review, subscribe, and share this content with somebody else. Maybe share on your social media, tell a friend about it. You could potentially change someone else's viewpoint or help provide them value just by doing that. It takes you 60 seconds, but it means the world to both of us just by getting this shared. So I appreciate it. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time.